Good morning. Welcome to Desert Palm UCC. Glad to see everybody. We like to say wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I just have a couple of quick announcements. The first one is, this is perfect that Sonia's sitting right here because I just want to say a special word of thanks to Sonia, not just for covering for me while I was on sabbatical, which I have acknowledged, but we had this intergenerational storytelling workshop recently. Sonia put a lot of work into that, and it was a great event. So let's hear it for Sonia. And speaking of my sabbatical, after church today, right here, I'll be giving a little report back about some of my experiences with family and also up at Chautauqua, and then family again in the Northwest. So I've got some pictures, and I'm going to put some books out that I either reread or read for the first time or read portions of for folks who are curious about that sort of thing. And lastly on my list is I just want to say next Sunday after church, we're going to have a prospective new member gathering. So that'll be next Sunday after church. And we have a couple more announcements. Mark has one, and then Pat, come on up so you can be here with Mark.
Good morning. Just a couple things. One, talk about the Bells of Peace will be starting up in October, so the first Wednesday of October. If you're interested in ringing bells and being part of the bell choir, please let me go. Please let me go. Please let me know. and then we have 5 people out sick today in the chancel choir, and so if those, I've heard different people who had interest in being a part of it. We want that to grow, and that, so we're on Wednesday nights at 7, so Bells of Peace at 6 on Wednesday nights, and chancel choir rehearsal at 7.
Thanks, Mark.
Good morning. First announcement is that October 15th is a Sunday, is our church family picnic at Desert Breeze Park from 11 to 2. The Desert Breeze is in Chandler. There is an announcement in the Friday announcements, and there will also be one in the Breeze, so you can get more information about that. And we will have maps as it gets closer to that time also. My second announcement is, as most of you know, I volunteer at the Welcome Center in Phoenix. And at the Welcome Center, asylum seekers who are released from ICE are brought there. Once they get there, they can receive a change of clothing, they get food, and they get help with travel arrangements to their sponsors wherever they are in the United States. But right now, the Welcome Center has a desperate need for shoes for men, women, and children. So if you have some gently used, comfortable shoes that you are no longer using, I would appreciate it if you could bring those to church. Either put them in the box outside the gate, or bring them on Sunday and put them on or below the table out there where other donations are brought. They would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Let's continue worshiping together. Claudia will lead us in.
please stand and join me in the call to worship. Bless the name of the Holy and Sovereign One forever and ever.
Praise our God, greatly to be praised.
Bless the name of the Holy and Sovereign One forever and ever.
This generation will tell the next generation, so they may tell the next generation of the Holy One's magnificent and mighty acts.
Bless the name of the Holy and Sovereign One forever and ever.
We declare the abundant goodness, gracious righteousness, and holy love of our God. Praise the Holy One.
Did all join me in hymn number 12 by Sing the Mighty Power of God.
Mighty God, we enter your presence with thanksgiving and hope. You have formed us as your people. You join us on the journey of life through valleys, upon mountains, and on the plains. We set our attention and seek your wisdom, encouragement, and grace. Reveal your will and display your glory among your people as we worship your holy name. Amen.
You can be seated and let's sing the children up, This Little Light of Mine.
Good morning. I will be brief, I hope, because Denise already has things set up back there, and it looks really tasty and really fun. So, you might have noticed that on the board it said Heroes and Heroines, maybe, or Heroes and something. So I just wanted to talk briefly about that, get you guys' feedback on what and who a hero is. Who's got a definition for me?
A hero would probably be somebody who helps other people or somebody you look up to.
I think those are excellent definitions. Does anyone have anything they want to add?
Like in short, a role model.
Okay, so you guys get the idea. What?
Is it someone who does something without being asked?
Yeah, that would be my hero if that happened at home, but our contestants. But we're all growing and learning, so. Yeah, that's what my definition is, just the right person at the right time in the right place. And we can think of biblical heroes like Who? You? Yeah. Well, I bet you have heroic qualities, like Abraham. Maybe you do what your father tells you. Is that right? Okay. Like I said, you can still learn and grow. Or you could be like David, who fought off Goliath and won, and was a humble shepherd boy and became a king. Or I think Mary's a hero, because when God said, you know, you're going to be having the Messiah, she didn't say like, no, that's not part of my 5-year plan. She accepted it. And I was like, wow. How about modern day heroes? Does anyone have any modern day heroes? Like that you could look to and go like, that's a genuine hero.
Parents are one.
All right, coming through today, Ivy, that's right. And I was trying to think who else, like Greta Thunberg, she would be one, right? I think Kamala Harris, our vice president, would be one, since she's the first woman vice president. I also think Elon Musk, even though he's not the best person, because he's doing a lot for humanity. But a lot of people don't agree with that, any of those people, actually. So heroes are not necessarily all the same for all people. Okay, let's hear it.
You see when he threw the rock at the Cybertruck and it broke, and he break?
I did not. But yeah, he's pretty interesting, the stuff that he says and does. So anyway, people have different opinions about what a hero is. And do heroes have to be perfect? No, everybody kind of knows that. Okay, and then let's see. Jesus is a hero too? Yes, Livia.
I was just gonna say, to run off the heroes isn't perfect. I was talking with my friend the other day that like most superheroes, even though I know they're just like, you know, made up. Most superheroes, like even after they save the day, they're still running from the cops themselves.
Yeah, I like that. That's pretty good because, yeah, heroes, it doesn't mean that your life is perfect and there's no problems. That's super astute, Olivia. So Jesus is kind of a hero because he embodies the characteristics of bravery and courage and love for humanity. And I think the Lord's Prayer is connected to being a hero because it identifies the characteristics that you need. So courage, service, selflessness. So guys, get ready, get in your prayer position. Take a deep breath. Our Mother, Father, who art in heaven.
Let's sing our little heroes out, shall we? Here we go.
This morning's sacred reading is from the book of Judges, chapter 4, verses 1 through 16. Deborah and Barak. The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud died. So the Lord sold them into the hand of King Jabin of Canaan, who reigned in Hatzor. The commander of his army was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth Hagoim. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord for help, for he had 900 chariots of iron and had oppressed the Israelites cruelly 20 years. At that time, Deborah, a prophet, wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel. She used to sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country. And the Israelites came up to her for judgment. She sent and summoned Barak, son of Abinoam, and said to him, "The Lord, the God of Israel, commands you, position yourself at Mount Tabor, taking 10,000 from the tribe of Naphtali and the tribe of Zebulun. I will draw out Sisera, the general of Jabin's army, to meet you with his chariots and his troops, and I will give him into your hand." Barak said to her, "If you will go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go." And she said, "I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the road on which you are going will not lead to your glory, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." Then Deborah got up and went with Barak to Kedesh. Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali to Kedesh, and 10,000 warriors went up behind him, and Deborah went up with him. When Sisera was told that Barak had gone up to Mount Tabor, Sisera called out all his chariots, 900 chariots of iron, and all the troops who were with him. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Up, for this is the day on which the Lord has given Sisera into your hand. Has not the Lord gone out before you?" So Barak went down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 warriors following him. And the Lord threw Sisera and all his chariots and all his army into a panic before Barak. Sisera got down from his chariot and fled away on foot, while Barak pursued the chariots and the army. All the army of Sisera fell by the sword. Not one was left. Thus ends the reading of today's reading.
Thanks, Mark. A lot of tricky names there. You did a wonderful job. Let's hear from Mark. I know that feeling. Antonia recently got an A on some essay writing, and she read it. I don't even remember if it was graded, but when she read it to me, and I was like, "Wow, that was just so fantastic!" And the first line hooked me. I know we've got some writers here, and that the beginning you want to hook folks, So I'm going to try to do that today with you, and I'm cheating because I'm borrowing the lead of an article from the New York Times. This ran back in June. And I quote, "One drizzly Saturday in May, a slender man in a blue raincoat approached a house in the Boston suburb of Melrose. It was just before 6 a.m., and no one was around. The man took out a can of red spray paint and scrawled just the beginning on the side of the white house. Then he hurled a brick through a large window and sprinted away." If you get interested later in the story, it's crazy because you can see an actual video of the guy throwing a brick through the window, because this person, who I'll be telling you about in a moment, had a security camera, and it was all captured on security film. So I'll get back to that story. It's also a teaser. It's a hook and a teaser. So we'll get back to that. But first, I just want to acknowledge and catch everybody up, if anybody happens to be here for the first time, or just to remind us all that we are going deeper into our exploration of the power of myth. We've been focused on that the past couple of Sundays. And this is part of a larger series in which we're talking about how do we bridge heaven and earth? How do we bring spiritual experiences and ideas, the spiritual dimension of life, into our earthly existence. How do we bridge heaven and earth? The general idea, and the reason I feel this is important to talk about, is that I think a lot of us feel at times that sort of awe-inspiring events of biblical times have kind of evaporated, right? And sometimes in the modern or postmodern mode, we just kind of feel like, we're adrift in this material universe. But I really believe that for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, that it's clear nation states and even whole civilizations are being powerfully sustained and carried along by spiritual forces. And this is where the understanding of myth comes in. And actually, when we stop and think about it, we all have our own personal myths. This was one of the great insights of the cultural anthropologist Ernest Becker, who talks about hero mythologies, and that's how we deal with the overwhelming vastness of the cosmos, is we have our own stories in which we are the stars, we are the heroes. It's natural. When it comes to the myth of the hero, again, it's hard not to think of Joseph Campbell. And I've been invoking his name as we talk about myth. It was Campbell who has this great definition of myth. I love it anyway. He says, myths are the method by which we pour the forces and power of the cosmos into our earthly existence. Wow. So myths are important. They really are part of what bridge heaven and earth. One of his best known books is The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And it's really such a brilliant title because it conveys this idea that while the masks and the gender and the dress and that might change, right, with different literary characters, biblical figures, that there are recurring themes to this idea of the myth of the hero. That it's ultimately a struggle between good and evil, life and death. And these stories recur again and again across all cultures in ways that should cause us to pause and say, hey, there's something important going on here. In the general pattern, what Campbell kind of highlights is that the hero descends, or heroine descends into the underworld, goes through some time of trial, usually involving a battle with some kind of evil, and then returns home with the treasure gleaned from the quest. We see this in popular culture all over the place, right? Harry Potter, the list could go on and on and on. We see it in the Bible as well. Take the story of Joseph, who goes into Pharaoh's dungeon. That is the underworld, folks, right? The dungeon. But then he rises, right? Or Jonah, swallowed by the whale. Again, another heroic myth. Okay, now I have to confess, this is where I caught myself and I realized, okay, men. If you're wondering why we have some images of David and Goliath, because originally I was going to use the story of David and Goliath, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I could get through this whole sermon and not mention one heroine, right? So before the women in the room get heroic on me, I want to mention a few women here. And I just have to acknowledge, I was talking with Mary Beth about this before the service, that what I'm doing right now, what I just said, is not that much different than Jan Wenner, the former editor-in-chief of the Rolling Stones magazine, who, if you missed this story, he's catching hell for having written a book about the 7 great founders of rock and roll, and they're all white men. And the book happens to be called Masters, that's a whole other thing. Yes, Massa. He said in his own defense that there just weren't any women or people of color who were articulate enough. Wow. At that point, the New York Times reporter who was interviewing him about the book said, "You mean to say that Joni Mitchell is not articulate enough?" I don't think he had a reply for that. If he did, I missed it. Actually, what he ended up saying was, well, I suppose I could have anticipated this kind of criticism, and I could have included some women or people of color. Right? So that's the trouble. I mean, and I'm even doing it here. I'm saying I caught myself. It's because we're caught in these larger forces. At least I am, to a degree. So I wanted to go down that rabbit hole a little bit just by way of saying that sometimes what's more important than appearances is having the transparency to identify our own inescapable collusion with the domination system, with the powers that be. I mean, if we can't be honest about the extent to which we are, in collusion, tangled up, then, well, we're never going to get anywhere. But suffice it to say, I did catch myself, so whether it was Barbie power or the Holy Spirit or both, I had the good sense to go with the story of Deborah this morning as our text. And without further ado, I want to return to that story that I used as my hook in the beginning, because it's going to lead us to a modern day heroine. That's her there. That's the NPR journalist Lauren Chooljian, Choolijian, who broke the story. I don't know if you guys heard this story, but the owner of this business that was running a residential drug rehab program in Rhode Island is allegedly accused of sexual misconduct, and she wrote a story about that, or did a piece on the radio on NPR. And after calling out that sexual misconduct of a powerful white dude, a man threw a brick through her window. As I said, you can Google this and you can watch the guy do it at 6 in the morning when no one was around. I think they attacked her mother's house as well. So this is the experience of a journalist today, right? I mean, this is how powerful these forces are today. Imagine someone like Deborah, who was a woman and a leader 25 centuries ago, right? When the general requests that Deborah, I don't know if you caught this part of the story, I think it's fascinating, I want to highlight it. Deborah says to the general, okay, now's the time, go, wage your battle, you're going to win. He says, can you come with me? This is so interesting, we're steeped in patriarchy, right, for 3,000 years, and yet here's the story right here where this military leader is saying, Deborah, can you come with me? I mean, obviously, this is a powerful woman, right? And it's so fascinating what she says. She says, well, I will come with you if you want me to, but this is going to make you look bad because everyone's going to say you depended on a woman. Wow, 3,000 years ago. I just find that remarkable. As powerful as she was, she's also smart and just mindful of the social norms at the time. So I caught myself again here, and I just want to say, if this is all too binary for you, we can easily turn this into a more modern parable in which we're talking about people's comfort levels and public perception of masculine and feminine or queer or gender fluid energies and the challenges involved in just showing up and being yourself, speaking your truth. It's not, it's more than about men and women. We have to be real that there's gender oppression, I mean, getting a brick thrown through your window is a good reminder of that, right? I want to make one other point about the story of Deborah, which has to do with the book of Judges in general. That in that very first line, which Mark read, the risk of losing my place, I just want to go back. The very first line, the Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. So the Lord sells them into, oppression, and then comes the judge. So this is the pattern that recurs throughout Judges. And I would imagine it's been a while since we've been reflecting on the book of Judges. So I just want everybody to kind of have a general sense that happens over and over again. The people mess up. God is mad at them, punishes them, and then when they cry out, he sends them a judge. That's why it's called the book of Judges. And the judges deliver them, which in this time and context usually means, as we saw, military victory. I just want to note, that I think this is a bit of a worn out idea that God is on our side. There's a danger in just kind of assuming that, I mean, imagine if we all still looked at the world that way, that God favors my country, and then you got another country saying the same thing. Well, there's never going to be an end to conflict if we allow ourselves to think that way, if we don't recognize that God is bigger than our national boundaries. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that God doesn't take sides. Whose side is God on? The great insight of liberation theology is that God is on the side of the poor. I want to show you a map of where the poorest people are on the planet. We want to ask ourselves, whose side is God on? He's on the side of folks living in those red areas. Of course, if that was a different kind of map, we'd have some poverty revealed here in the U.S., but that is the poorest of the poor. Imagine if we thought of the world that way. Suddenly NATO falls away. All of our national borders, I mean, we're looking at continents here, right? All the rivalries, everything melts away. And we are shifted into a new kind of consciousness, one characterized by the growing awareness that what God intended on this planet was for life to flourish, that we are all meant to thrive along with all creation in deeper rhythms with the earth. If we circle back around to the book of Judges, we can see that beneath the pattern of God's people falling off track and being punished and then being restored is this essential idea that we don't want to lose, that it is possible to exist in harmony with God in all creation. That's what Judges is trying to get at, right? People mess up. We, as a species, have messed up. We are harming the earth in unprecedented ways. So that's, in a way, nothing new. People mess up. Sonia was talking about, hey, no hero is perfect. We're not perfect. It's not the nature of reality. But the biblical hope is that we can start to envision returning to a place of deeper harmony. You know what? It's not just Christianity that's saying that, right? And that's emerging from Judaism, even in the book of Judges. But it's what Taoism is saying, that ultimately the great challenge is to harmonize our existence with the deeper living systems of the earth and the universe. It is the universal hope of Christianity that all might be as one. I mean, if we're all living as one, we're not dropping bombs on each other, right? We are working with each other as one. Jesus pointed to the flowers and the power of nature to help us grasp this deep truth that everything is unified. We talked about living water recently, right? He used water as a way to talk about what spiritual experience should be like. And when you stop and think about it, there is a deep unity to the planet's water. It just flows all through the earth, right? From the mountains to the sea, and then it evaporates into the clouds and comes down again in healing rain. You can feel the unity of the earth as God made it. We are meant to be part of that unity. It really seems to me as a species at the dawn of the 21st century, we are coming to a place on our journey where we can begin, just begin to understand our place in this bigger scheme of things. It's one of Bob's pictures of the Milky Way at night. What is our place in this cosmos? We are in a lush and gorgeous garden. We have tapped into the powers of the stars. We have learned that we have come from the stars, right? I just find that so fascinating. We have been given the gift of life, the gift of consciousness, the power to love or to kill, to be kind, or to seek power over each other. Too often our ancient myths, whether we're looking at Deborah's advice to a military general or David killing Goliath, you know, there are these countless acts of violence, you know, so the myths lift up certain values, but at the same time we need to bring some critical consciousness to these stories. Or else we could come away thinking God wants us to hate and kill our enemies, but Jesus tried to show us that the myth of the good guys and the bad guys, we could say the cowboys and the Indians, is inadequate ultimately because it leads to ongoing conflict. The larger crusades that we see in the world between East and West, right? I mean, aren't we tired of war? I know I am. If we just turn on the news, you know, we're at war here between right and left. It's unbelievable, right? There's all these articles about how to navigate Thanksgiving and Christmas, you know, how to talk to your, you know, your family member who's on the other side of the political divide. I don't think we've ever been this divided, that at least not in my lifetime, and I'm getting older. But I think you have to look back to the Civil War, right? I mean, that's what people are saying. So we have fallen from a great height, you know, as a nation, as a civilization, and we're broken. I think it's clear we're broken. We're nearly paralyzed in terms of doing anything productive for the country and the world. But instead of fighting on, I think we need to learn to see each other's humanity, regardless of our political affiliation. We can disagree, that's okay, right? That's part of democracy. But we have to pull together as people of faith, right? As citizens of the world. I attended an event the other day at ASU, and I want to tell you about it. There was a group of about 30 of us. It was put on, Aaron, what's the name of that group? Project Humanities, yes, thank you. Project Humanities put this on, and it was designed, it's called Civic Dialogue, and it was designed to bring people together from different points of view. And they read a controversial statement. I have to say, the first thing we did was we broke up into groups of 5, and we each had 3 minutes to tell a personal story. Power of storytelling. So we shared a story. We got to know each other a little bit. And then a controversial statement was made, and they had like 5 seats in a semicircle, and each seat was identified. If you strongly agree with a statement, you sit here. If you just agree, if you're neutral, if you disagree or strongly disagree, you can come up and take a seat. And then you have this fishbowl discussion in front of the audience where people are disagreeing. But the idea is, you know what? It's okay if we disagree on stuff. This is the nature of civil dialogue. So it's a program that began 20 years ago by, I think, a master's or doctoral level student who wrote a thesis about this. He and his professor are still doing this work. She was with him this night. And the statement that they read was interesting. It was something to the effect of, if you let go of your commitment to diversity, that's a dangerous thing. So somebody right away went up and sat in the I strongly agree with this, and then someone sat down and I agree, and then the neutral person. But it was a great sign. Nobody wanted to sit in the chair that said, I disagree with that. I mean, this is a bunch of, liberal intellectuals and artsy people. It was in some theater on the ASU campus. And so it was really interesting. And if you want to hear the rest of that, I'll tell you, eventually somebody did come and sit and just say, well, it depends on what we define diversity as and that kind of thing. Diversity is a celebration of our differences. And it's an affirmation of the simple truth that together, all of us are more than the sum of our parts. And ultimately, all humanity, all creation, right? We're part of these larger systems that reach out across the world. This is a power derived from welcoming everyone, from being genuinely open to the energy that is outside so that it can come in and be inside. It is the power that's ultimately we're welcoming God's energy, the light of the cosmos. Whether by the sun's light by day or the stars and moon by night, God is always present, always and everywhere, in life and in death. I experienced recently with the passing of my mother the darkness of the night, right? I mean, many of you have reached out to me and have also lost parents and are speaking from that place of experience. So you know that when you lose a parent, that you are enveloped in this deep spiritual night. But then word went out to the congregation, and all of these lights appeared in the sky through your many words of encouragement and love. We Christians, I think, have wrongly made an enemy of the night. But as we will discuss in the coming weeks when we explore dreams, the night heralds angels and sacred dreams. We are slowly coming to understand that death and suffering were woven into the miracle of existence from the very beginning. We descend into the night liturgically when we get to the Lenten season, and then we celebrate the return of life through Easter. For thousands of years, our religious tradition has drawn sustenance from that myth. And as Sonia said, Jesus was kind of heroic, right? Jesus' descent into Hades, remember we say he descended into hell. And now we can be free to think of this literally or purely mythologically, or some combination of the two. But Jesus' descent embraced the darkness of the world. And he transformed that darkness into light through the power of love. As Christians, we stand by the claim that Jesus is the light of the world. But like the night sky, there isn't just one light. Yes, we have our sun, and thank God we have our sun. It's beautiful and life-giving. And I won't tell you if I'm saying S-U-N or S-O-N there. But when night comes, the sky is ablaze with suns. That's what stars are, right? There's more suns. And you are the stars that sing. That's what the Hopis realized. We are the stars that sing. How beautiful is that? So take your heroic journey into your personal depths, into the depths of the world, into the darkness of the night, and then let your light shine. Amen.
Philippians chapter 1, verse 2 encourages us to live your life in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or am absent and hear about you, I will know that you are standing firm in one spirit, striving side by side with one mind for the faith of the gospel. May we live generous lives that reflect the fullness of the gospel, unity of the Spirit, and faith in our God and God's church. Great God, please receive our gifts for the glory of your name and the blessing of your people. May we be dedicated stewards of your abundance and use these gifts for the benefit of your kingdom. Amen.
If you'd join me in hymn number 76, Sent Forth by God's Blessing.
In lieu of our benediction prior to singing Holly Holly, I just want to say, by way of a PS, I'd be remiss not to mention one hero that we have with us, and that's Marion. I think a lot of folks know that Jim has been going through a really tough time, and Marion's been plunged into a really challenging place, and I've seen you all blazing like stars in the night sky, which is such a beautiful thing. But Marion, my proverbial hat is off to you, because you have been truly heroic. So let us know if there's anything we can do. And I also just want to mention too that Gary, I'm not saying last names because we're live streaming and everything, but for those of you who are aware that he had surgery, it went really well, so keep him in your prayers. And with that, blessings on you all for being blazing stars in the night sky. Continue to let your light shine. If you're visiting, we'll sing Holly Holly. Did we just sing this through a couple times? You can hold hands if you feel comfortable, or